Ron? Okay. Hi, everybody. Give me 2 seconds so we could get this properly shared. This is the Monday meeting of the Coronavirus Task Force. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to this week's Coronavirus Task Force meeting. Again, I'd like to remind everybody that we have a sign language interpreter that's helping us translate to some Hammond families that have trouble hearing us. So I'm asking you all to please talk slower and more clearly so that Brittany can keep up with us. And today we enter stage 2 in Lake County. Porter County entered stage 2 last week. I'm going to explain in a few what is the difference about stage 1 to stage 2, what you'll notice that's different. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Dr. Frank Masana of Comprehensive Care. Then we're going to go to Karen Callahan over there at Franciscan Health. I'm going to talk a little bit about stage 2. Then we'll go through and talk to anybody else that needs to communicate to the public, and hopefully we'll be done within a half hour. So how you doing, Dr. Frank? Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you. For all you moms out there, hopefully you had a nice day yesterday in spite of the quarantine. Happy Mother's Day belatedly. I don't have a whole lot to add to the conversation today. I think we're kind of in a holding pattern. There's some new developments that are just very new. We don't have enough information on some variants of Kawasaki's disease in children. I'm not sure all the information is enough to start really commenting on it. We started doing antibody testing across the country last week. We're starting to get some results in. I'm be very curious to see how those shake out. I don't have enough information to really give you any update as to those results on a large scale. We've only been about 50 tests so far.
Are you guys testing at Comp Care, Doctor?
Say that again?
Are you guys testing at Comprehensive Care?
We are doing antibody testing through LabCorp. We are not doing testing for anybody that has symptoms of the illness. We're not doing the nasopharyngeal swab testing, which is the appropriate test if you have current symptoms. We're not doing that testing. But we are doing the antibody testing, and we started doing that as for clients, companies that are trying to get people back to the workplace. You know, everybody has different guidelines that they're going to have to follow depending on their state, their localities, and especially companies that work for other larger companies or do work at other larger companies. So we're trying to help them as they try to reinstate people back into the workplace, and antibody testing can be a part of that. Certainly not a requirement. Some places are requiring. We have a company that's doing work in the Dominican Republic, actually, and the Dominican Republic is requiring them to show a negative testing. So we started doing that for them. So there's different requirements that we're doing. We're going to start testing our own staff out of curiosity, truthfully, to see who has been exposed and to what degree.
So so you have adequate tests, obviously, at Comp Care, right?
Yeah, so the nice thing about this is it's just a blood draw. You can use the regular, they call them tiger top or red top tube, and you just send one vial of blood in to get tested. So there is no supply needed other than what a clinic would ordinarily have.
Gotcha.
So it makes it really nice. You know, clinics already have established pickups, couriers, you know, for getting that to the laboratory. So it's really nice. As I was saying last week, I was very, very cautious on the antibody testing because the FDA has not approved many of them, and their false negative rates are just not been established. So I'm a little concerned that some of these, especially the finger prick ones, are going to have too many high false negatives.
Yeah. We have a question coming from the fire department. Kevin, could you?
Hey, Dr. Frank, Kevin Margraf here. If you take the antibody test, and test positive, what does that mean?
So things. There's different antibodies. So I'm just going to give you a quick understanding of how the human body works with when you fight an infection. So imagine the human body is a battlefield, and we have a foreign invader called the coronavirus, or it could be any antigen, as we call diseases antigens, that comes into play. So our antibodies kick in, and the first troops out on the battlefield are your IgM. And so they kind of go and they start the battle, they start the fight off, but they get quickly relieved by backups, which is a much larger force of what's called IgG antibodies. So historically, when we look for determining people that are infected, we can do IgM and IgG testing. If somebody's positive for IgM, it is indicative of a more current infection. You can also be positive for IgG and IgM, but IgG takes usually approximately a week or so to show up, whereas IgM shows up much sooner. So once you've won the battle and you've killed all of the foreign invaders, in this case the virus, IgM leaves. They've been relieved, so they leave the battlefield, but IgA sticks around, and you have a certain number of forces that stay there to monitor and make sure if they see this virus again, they're ready to go. They know where the weaknesses are in the virus. They know how they were attacking it and killing it previously, so they're ready to go. So you can test for IgG. We go way out. We can do, this is the same type of testing we do to determine if someone has immunity for things such as hepatitis B, if they've been vaccinated, for measles, if they've been vaccinated. So we know how to test for these. Those would be quantitative tests, which gives you a number of the antibodies. We can't do that test yet. It just tells you if it's present or not.
Okay.
So without getting too much into it, so the relevance of the antibody testing is that if you have somebody coming up with IgM, it probably was a more recent infection without the presence of IgG, especially. We actually had one case come back like that, and I had recommended that person go into quarantine. Okay. If they are negative for IgM and positive for IgG, you can surmise that this was a distant infection that happened sometime in the past. What we don't know is how long IgM stays in the system. Theoretically, all of these infections are relatively recent. COVID-19 has only been here for the last 3 months, probably been here a little bit longer than that, unreported, but it's all relatively recent. So I'm expecting that we're going to see a combination of IgM and IgG positive. It's when I'm not seeing the IgG that gets me a little concerned, because that is more indicative of a recent infection, and we're treating those as first time that they've been informed that they are positive. Even though this may have been something that they're asymptomatic, they're still going to have to go into quarantine. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Well, it does. I mean, so if you test positive, you should quarantine. You can't come to work?
No, that's where there's a little bit more that has to be done to determine when somebody may have been symptomatic. So let's say somebody says, yeah, I was really sick a month ago. I didn't get tested at the time. It wasn't available. I couldn't get tested. That is, that would be somebody who is theoretically immune. For what a period of time, we don't know, but they should be good to go back. So you really have to get the history associated with the blood test to make that determination. The cases that I was describing with just the IgM, those are the ones that I'm going to recommend at this point, with the information we have, which is still limited, that they quarantine.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. You got anything else you want to hit right now?
So the only other thing I can say is they started, I think we are on track. That 14-day number seems to be a very good number when we're letting people back into the workplace. They've tried to culture the virus in the laboratory, and they're unable to grow it on individuals that were known positive after 14 days. So we're pretty confident that the typical viral pattern is holding for the coronavirus, meaning people get sick, they're contagious for about the first 2 to 5 days. they start to get better, and the virus starts to wane, and they're no longer contagious probably by that 10-day mark, certainly by the 14-day mark. That appears to be the case, which is encouraging.
Okay.
So
Right.
That's about all I got.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. We're going to Karen Callahan next at Franciscan Healthcare, Hammond. How you doing, Karen?
Good, good. How are you?
Welcome
just
to stage 2.
Yes, thank you. Couple things for my report would be right now we have 26 positive in the house with 9 rule out. To date, which we are starting week 9 in the hospital. All of this started about March 15th. So we are at week 9. We've had 200 cases go home, 35 deceased, and so about a total of 261 cases here in Hammond. We have plenty of ventilators. Our ICU beds are a little bit tight today. We had a busy weekend, but some of that is from non-COVID patients, but ventilators are plentiful. And some of that is related to staffing, not that they're sick because of COVID, just because it's a day that we have maybe a little bit of lower staff. A couple of things I'd like to caution the public is be cautious as you start phase 2. Remember what we've taught you, basically, hand washing, masking. Don't forget about the contact surfaces, door handles, everything, any surface that you can touch, just remember to wash your hands after that. We are progressing into a new normal. And basically, we may have to have some potential, some of this, if you have to find something positive, you have to think of the creativity that people have used to open places and stores and stuff like that. So be cognizant of, and respectful of the businesses that have their 6 feet lines and, maybe some barriers. I saw Home Depot in Hammond over the weekend had a very nice glass barrier when you go to purchase. So be respectful of that. And then the last thing, just to kind of piggyback on Dr. Masana, be wary of those finger stick antibody testing because those antibody testings, the FDA has lightened their restrictions just a little bit. And I worry about people getting a finger stick and thinking that they're okay and forgetting about protecting themselves. So those antibody tests have to go through a strict sensitivity and specificity by the labs like LabCorp and Alverno Labs. So be leery about just going anywhere to a doc in the box kind of a place to get a quick antibody test, because that's not 100% true yet. And that's about all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Has anything changed now that you're in stage 2 at the hospital, or is it still pretty much the same?
For Hammond, everything is pretty much the same. Dyer increased their elective surgeries, and Munster started 25%. Then next Monday, Hammond will do 25% of elective surgeries. We have taken the stance of just moving very slowly and cautiously to get us back on track.
Is Hammond you guys have multiple campuses. Is Hammond about the average, or are we in worse shape because of our proximity to Chicago as far as positive cases and ventilator space available?
Hammond has more volume than any of the Dyer and Munster. So yes, we have more cases than everybody else. And the problem is all 3 of the hospitals are on state line. So the proximity is still the same, even if we are closer to Illinois, yes. To Chicago, but they're all close to Illinois, but we always have been busier. The Hammond campus is the busiest.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I'd like to, I'm going to go to Rick Sparks in a couple minutes here. So Rick, if you don't mind being ready, because today we entered stage 2, and a lot of people watching have no idea how that affects them. For instance, in stage 2, City Hall is open today for the first time in 2 months by appointment only. So we actually have outsiders, that were previously not allowed to enter City Hall in City Hall. We are monitoring temperatures before anybody could come in. We are monitoring the total number of people in the building. We are maintaining proper social distancing in the building. We are requiring face masks in the building. Over 65, or if you have underlying health issues, you're recommended in stage 2 to stay at home. So that's how stage 2 affects City Hall. For everybody on this, the gathering limits that were previously enforced was 10. You couldn't be in groups of larger than 10 people. That has gone up to 25 in stage 2. So presumably you could be in larger gatherings now that we're in stage 2. However, social distancing must be maintained. So even though the gathering limit went up, we have to maintain social distancing. Non-essential travel in stage 2, non-essential travel is allowed in stage 2. So the essential travel restriction has been lifted. I want to go to Rick next because in stage 2, religious services are allowed. Previously, any attempts to have religious services in the name of the pandemic and public safety have been not allowed. Now in stage 2, religious services are allowed, quite frankly, with no limit on the number of people in that religious institution. They're not held to the 25-person limit, probably for First Amendment reasons, I imagine, is why religious institutions are treated differently than government, retail, things of that nature. I do know that the Gary Diocese has decided not to hold mass until I believe the end of May. I wish I had an accurate date off the top of my head. I apologize, but religious services, I'm Catholic. We did not have services this week, nor do I believe next week are services in the Gary Diocese. I know a number of other churches have decided not to hold services. However, some churches have held services, and that's why I wanted to talk to Rick, if he doesn't mind. He's been part of our coronavirus task force from the get-go. First Baptist Church in Hammond has a large congregation. They have multiple services, and they can seat up to 7,500 people per service. So obviously, social distancing has dramatically affected how the First Baptist Church of Hammond conducts itself. And I want to thank Rick for participating in these task force meetings. How you doing, Rick?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I know that you guys started somewhat getting back to normal, the new normal, this weekend at First Baptist Church of Hammond. Is that true?
That's correct. We've been doing the service each week virtually with just a handful of people here on the campus. But on Sunday we went ahead and opened up the auditorium, and we've not ran our buses for 5 or 6 weeks now. So all we had was the drive-in people, so to speak, come into the church, and we obviously, going with the governor's guidelines, we asked those 65 and older and those who have complications not to come. I don't even know the number. I would assume about 40% of our people came, maybe 50. We spaced them out throughout the auditorium, both the lower floor and upper floor. We had lots of meetings to organize the thing to make it happen. To be honest with you, I think the service went very well. People seemed to be happy. It worked well. We spaced them out in the auditorium. We set family groups together, and we have no nurseries. We have no Sunday schools. We have a grid that we have developed. It's on our website if anybody's interested in it. But and I sent one to your chief of staff. But it is basically we have a plan between now and July 4th, trying to go back to what our normal is. But that's all flexible according to whatever happens with the state and of course the city.
Now, the parishioners that were attending the service were all in masks, I imagine?
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, the parishioners that attended your service, I imagine they were wearing masks, right?
There were masks with the governor's recommendation. We recommended them wear masks. I wore a mask, but we did not require the mask to be worn to come into the service. So there were masks We had, and we used 2 buildings, the Spanish building, the Spanish-speaking people met, following the same rules that we were in the English church.
Okay.
So we had auditoriums. I wouldn't say they were packed, but they were comfortably filled. I would put it that way.
So I imagine people were happy to be back at church after being locked
Yeah.
out for the last couple months.
Very, it's been very difficult, but yes, it was good to see people. Pastor, again, there was no handshaking, and church is not like it was, but it was good to be back together in the same room.
Good. Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate your update.
Yep.
Thanks. To continue on stage 2, what's different from stage 1, where we were last week, to where we are now in stage 2? Retailers that were curbside only are now at 50% capacity. What we're talking about is things like liquor stores, clothing stores, furniture stores, jewelry stores that were previously curbside only are now at 50% capacity. So that's another difference between stage 1 and stage 2. Next Monday, a week from today, we enter into stage 2B, I guess, part 2 of stage 2, where restaurants, barber shops, beauty salons, tattoo parlors, things of that nature open up next Monday at 50% capacity. Now, if a restaurant opens up next Monday, bar service is still closed. You cannot sit at the bar next to each other, crowd the bar. That's still closed. Now, what is still closed? Another question that we wanted to get out there. What is still closed? Bars and nightclubs, still closed. Gyms and community centers, YMCA, Civic Center Gym, Planet Fitness, still closed. Playgrounds, tennis courts, basketball courts, water parks, still closed. Sports venues, like the Sportsplex, Gene Shepherd Center, Hammond Civic Center, still closed. Playgrounds, outdoor sports fields, still closed. Casinos, still closed. Movie theaters, still closed. Outdoor pools, still closed. Water park, sprinklers, still closed. Schools and universities, still closed. I'm going to scour the internet to see if anybody has questions, but I want to do some updates from Hammond Police, Hammond Fire, Hammond Public Works, and anybody else that needs to do an update. We'll start with the Assistant Chief of Police, Andy Short. How you doing, Andy?
Good morning.
Could you go ahead and give an update to the public on Hammond Police Department, if you don't mind?
As of right now, we are fully staffed. We have, I think the last guy came back to work today. And as far as the PPE, we have more than 2 months full of supplies. And as far as the crime is still pretty steady.
Yeah. You notice any Illinois residents coming over more? I know we had,
Oh, yes.
we broke up a huge party this weekend.
Yes.
That was close to the state line in a house.
Yes. Illinois is still coming over.
Illinois residents are still coming over?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So no new positive cases?
No positive cases.
Plenty of PPE?
Yes, we do. Over 2 months.
Good. Everybody at work?
Yes, they
presumably?
are.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Had a question before I go to the fire department. Question, when Hammond restaurants open at 50% next week, will Illinois people be kept out because they are still on lockdown? No, they won't be. They probably will come over here. I have a real good friend that's an Illinois resident that's right next to me on screen right now, Dr. Frank Masana. If I put up a roadblock at the Illinois border, I don't think Dr. Frank could get to work. That would be against the That would be against the U.S. Constitution. We're a country and we are allowed to freely travel between states. So the fact that the governor of our state opened up our state and the fact that the governor of Illinois kept his state locked down means that, and if people travel and they travel here, there's nothing we can do about that. So I'd next like to go to the Hammond Fire Department. Our Deputy Chief is here, Kevin Margraf, for an update to the public. How you doing, Kevin?
Good morning, Mayor. Morning, everybody. The fire department, again, like I positively say weekly, is we're doing well. We have had calls over the weekend in regard to COVID-19 related situations. PPE, we probably have a 2-month supply as well, similar to what the police department's talking about. We have one individual who is off currently awaiting results of a COVID test, which took place on Saturday. And again, all I can say is we still need to be vigilant about what we're doing personally, as well as dealing with the public. It's still out there. I mean, I've done some traveling in the last couple of days and I've seen it in another state. It was essential, of course, that I had to do this. But 50% of the populations that I've seen, they wear masks, they may wear gloves, the other ones don't. But again, the problem persists. I mean, our numbers seem to be going down. But again, vigilance is key, just as Dr. Masson and Karen Callahan have talked about every time that we meet. But all in all, the fire department's doing well.
I mean, police and fire, we're doing incredibly well.
We are. Yes, we are.
We've had, what, 2 total officers test positive since this began, or is it 3?
1 tested positive, and we had like 5 that did go get tested.
But one out of the 5 is positive, and spent time off work and is already back to work.
Yes.
How about in fire
We've
department?
had 2 positive cases out of 13 tested.
13 tested.
Yes.
Those 2 are already back to work.
We're awaiting a result on a 3rd as we speak.
And when you think about it, right now, Hammond, Indiana has 394 confirmed positive cases. 394 confirmed positive cases as of yesterday in the city of Hammond, Indiana, and to only have a couple positive in fire, a couple positive in PD is amazing, in my opinion. 13 people have died in Hammond since this began. 394 positive cases, 13 people have died. So think about that when you're walking around with no mask on, acting like there's nothing going on. I would like to next go to the Department of Public Works. Johnny Perez. Hey, Johnny, could you step up over here? Just give us a quick update on Public Works, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. Right now, we have plenty of PPE.
Plenty of PPE.
We have also that since the pandemic started, we have 1 positive case,
One positive.
1 positive, and we're taking proper precaution. People coming in, we're ready to start taking people in. We have plexiglass between the people coming in and us. We have hand sanitizer on the front, the pens, everything ready, Mayor. So far, so good, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you said you had how many total positive cases so far?
1
1.
since the beginning of this. That's it.
And you guys, you know, we have in a garbage truck, you have a couple people in a truck,
Couple
right?
people, yes. But thanks to Gary and 18 Bury Street, we had the hand sanitizer, so we put 1 in every truck. And then when they go low, they come back and they get a refill and so on.
And in the truck, the guys are wearing masks.
One mask, and we have when they're coming in the morning, we have a box and we have a sign to take whether they need gloves or mask, and they go on the merry life, you know.
Okay.
So far we've been good, Mayor, just in general.
All right, good. We got good. I had a question from the internet I wanted to hit next, and Kelly, I'm going to need you to come up. I got a question from a caller that says, if you have, I'm paraphrasing here, if you have a restaurant that has a bar, and instead of, you know, not realizing they could see people at the bar, they put tables around the bar that were not previously there because they want to get more people in the restaurant. If there's complaints like this that come up, Phil, could you address that if you don't mind? My Chief of Staff, Phil Talon. So let's say I had a bar, and instead of bar seating, I put a table right next to the bar, which is sort of defeating the purpose of bar seating. Questions like this come up. What should a person do?
There's certain restaurants out there that I've already gone to for the curbside pickup, and you could tell they've already eliminated 50% of their tables. So they're already setting up for 50% occupancy. However, if you have a situation like that, there's a couple different ways you can handle it. One, you could potentially use the 311 app that we have in Hammond to let us know that there is some sort of violation of the new rules that are in place. You also could contact the mayor's office and talk to one of our staff, and they could relay the information. And that number is 219-853-6301. And then if it's after a certain time, like 4:30, and City Hall's closed, and you think it's really an emergency, you also could use the 911 emergency number. Obviously, years ago, they put that in place where 911 is set up for emergencies and non-emergencies. So that is a solution as well. But I think I would try the 311 app first. That will get to us. If that doesn't work, you can contact City Hall. And then worst case scenario, you could also dial 911.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. You're welcome. I'm going to call him Chief. I'd like next go to Kelly Kearney, who's the head of inspections. Kelly is one of the busier departments. Inspections probably one of our real customer service heavy departments. People literally waiting in line to deal with Kelly's department. So the first day we opened City Hall, which is today, of course, when I got to work, we had a line out the door. It's by appointment only, right, Kel?
That's correct.
Also, going back to the question I just asked Phil, I imagine your code enforcement officers will probably get a lot of situations like this presented to them.
Yes, they will. With everyone back in full force now, we're full staff. They'll be on the road a lot more. Take care of those things that come in this time of year, grass cutting and such. But home inspections and that have been on hold to limit contact with the outside. Doing home inspections now with people that are in occupied homes is kind of a dangerous situation. As people that are coming in, we still offer permit services. You can do that by phone, rental registration for it to be done by mail. If you come to the office, you will get tested as far as temperature, and you may be served as far as getting the paperwork that you need to get that registration form in. But it is busy. Fortunately, we are the first point of contact entry into City Hall, so we're not scattered throughout the building.
Okay, Kelly, I got a question off the internet. This is the kind of thing I have a feeling is going to start happening a lot. On Sunday morning, went into Supermarket Ortega on Kennedy Avenue in Hessville. Place was extremely packed. No room to social distance. Definitely not following the capacity rule right now. That was a caller on the internet. How would you tell code enforcement to approach situations like this?
The capacity is determined by formulas depending on standing room, sitting room area. Same for bars or restaurants. There's a formula in the code book to determine how many people are allowed in that store. So going by the governor's rules of what capacity could be at this point in phase 2, you would have to go in, measure square footage, and determine how many people would be allowed, and then you cut it by that 25 or 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to actually go in and take the measurements and make sure the capacity is correct for full capacity, and then a percentage of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The other day, there were so many Illinois people at Jewel Osco. It was a crazy parking lot full of a lot of them, and they were parking just standing around socializing. It was awful. We're on the state line. We can't stop people from Illinois from coming into Indiana. It's against the Constitution. What about bars that serve food? Can we open on the 18th? I'm gonna have my corporate counsel come up, Kevin. So this is Kevin Smith, Hammond Corporate Counsel. How you doing, Kev?
Good, Mayor.
Go ahead, sit right here. So like an 18th Street Brewery, can they open on the 18th? If it's a bar that serves food?
They can open up on the 18th with 50% capacity in their seating, but the bar seating would remain closed.
So 18th Street.
Who does serve food, and they do have a bar area, so they'd be 50% in their seating area, but they would not be allowed to have any of the bar.
How do we know that they're at 50% what they were before? What if as long as they're socially distanced, I guess that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and
right?
of course, there's also fire, at every place, there's a fire code
Gotcha.
maximum, so.
So you think you guys will get a lot of these calls in also at the Hammond Fire Department? So if we go to 18th Street and they have a capacity at 120 people for the fire code, and there's more than 60 people in there, then we got issues as of next week, right?
Well, I mean, we would certainly talk to them and try and make them understand, obviously, what the executive orders of the governor have stated, and certainly we try to work through it in a friendly fashion.
Okay, thank you. 400 new positive cases in the state of Indiana. 17 Hoosiers died since the last time we spoke. We've done 4,373 new tests since the last time we spoke. I don't know if we're on our way down or way up. Interesting thing I noticed in the statewide demographics, it's interesting and unfortunate. African American population, which comprises about 10% of Indiana's total population, 14% of the total coronavirus cases, so it's a little disproportionately higher. Statewide, we have 42% of available ICU beds. Statewide, we have 82% available ventilators. Those were consistent numbers that we're hearing from Karen Callahan when she updates us. I know Franciscan Healthcare Hammond has had availability in ICU and in ventilators. Is that still the case, Karen? Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
Actually do. 3 quick things about PPE. I notice in the stores and in the public that people wear gloves. That's fine that you want to wear gloves to protect your hands, but the germs are on the gloves. So when you scratch your eye or touch your nose or your mouth with your gloves on, you are contaminating yourself. If you're going to wear a mask, which I recommend that you should, you need the mask to cover your nose and your mouth. And number 3, when you take your mask off, you need to wash your hands. Either have some hand sanitizer in your vehicle, or before you touch anything, including your face and your eyes, wash your hands. Like if you bring your groceries in your house, wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds, vigorously scrubbing your hands before you touch anything else. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I had a question off the internet for the water department. Why is the water department open? This is Mark McLaughlin. He's acting CEO of the Hammond Water Department. How you doing, Mark?
Hi, Mayor.
Are you open?
Yes, we are open to the public, preferably by appointment only right now. You walk up to the front door, there'll be a number to call, or you can knock on the door and we will let you in. We have it spaced out. In the next week or so, we'll have plexiglass up at the counter. So then we'll just keep the door open. But until the plexiglass is up, we'd appreciate a phone call and we can accommodate everybody. We are open to the public.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Caroline asked the same question like 3 times, and we've answered it a few times, but we'll go ahead and answer it again. Can anybody answer my question? Do restaurants have to wear a mask and move their tables 6 feet apart? Also, could you please come up here, Kevin? Are employees counted in the 50% rule in restaurants? Good questions. And then why can't you answer the question? It's not a hard one. I appreciate it. We got a couple things going. So.
Well, we have answered it, I think, but we're happy to address it again because it can be confusing, Mayor. And that is that, so 50% capacity, my understanding is that that means of the public. So that's why I would read that. I know Chief Margraf might have to deal with that when they're looking at occupancy, but that's my understanding of 50% capacity. There is a requirement for servers and kitchen staff to wear masks and servers to wear gloves.
So the public does not?
Not mandated. It's recommended that we all wear masks while we're in public. And we've probably all experienced that when we go to the grocery store, when we go to other public places, people are wearing masks. You're encouraged. It's recommended by the governor is the language he's using. It's not mandated, but it is mandated for employees of kitchen staff and servers at restaurants when they open on the 18th, not today, on the 18th to 50% capacity.
Is dog grooming open yet?
So I can just tell you my own personal experience is that dog groomers were open, but they were not allowing people inside. They come out, grab your dog, take them in, take them back. So it's different than personal services because it's your dog.
What's the difference? I'm asking you a question.
Sure. I feel like I'm getting peppered here. I'm ready.
What's the difference? I'm asking. What's the difference between seating at a table or a bar? Seating at a table, you are either next to or across from a person. If at a bar, you are next to, but what's the difference?
I believe
First off, we don't make these rules. Okay, I want to point that out. These rules come from the governor of the state of Indiana. We're doing our best to interpret them. This is not a Hammond-made rule. Let's start with that.
Good point.
So
Mayor.
what the heck is the difference?
All right, Mayor. My understanding, I guess, the way I interpret what the governor is saying, what they're trying to accomplish, and again, Mayor, you just made a very good point, which is we're kind of doing this a little bit on the fly, and everyone is. We're trying to interpret new rules that are being sent down to us from the governor's office. And I know the police department and the fire department are the people that are on the street, and they're faced with this burden. The way I would, if requested, as this person on Facebook asked to be interpreted, is that the reason I think the governor's doing that is because bars can be, the bartender's closer to you usually than 6 feet when you're at the bar. And also the stools are usually very close together, and there's a lot less room to move behind and, with people. Whereas in a restaurant area,
And what do you do when you want to drink and there's a full bar? You get in between
you
them
get in
and
between people, you start asking, you start going right behind someone. So I think they're just trying to
breathing on
avoid.
their neck.
You got it, Mayor. So I think we're trying to avoid those situations, and closing the bar, I think, is the governor's idea that this will avoid any of that happening.
Closing the bar was the governor's idea. I agree with Kevin. We are enforcing the governor's executive order. So if you get frustrated, I realize crap rolls downhill, but please address your concerns with the person that made the rule. Let's see. You can only, face masks should be mandated in public. That was another one.
They're recommended, that they're not mandated.
Okay.
So it's all personal responsibility type thing, Mayor.
Okay. Dr. Frank, you got anything before we wrap up?
Nope, I'm good.
If anybody has anything they'd like to bring up, please hit the wave your hand function on Zoom, and we'll wait for a couple seconds. Does anybody in here have anything they need to bring up to the public? Everybody good? Okay, we, in the meantime, we talked about the frequency of these meetings, and we think until we get into stage 3, it's a good idea to continue the Monday, Thursday. Is that all right with you guys? Okay, so I will see you guys on Thursday at 10:30. Thank you very much for participating in the Coronavirus Task Force meeting. I'll see you Thursday at 10:30. Take care, stay safe.